Good morning. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this inaugural episode of Women in Truth. My name is Dr. Sherilyn Jones, and my co-host and partner in this venture is the incredible Masako Ganaha from Masako Ganaha's World Research on Substack and X. You can also find me on Substack and X, Twitter as well as the website for the nonprofit Land Nam Warrior, LANDNAM warrior.org. And this morning we were going to have for our inaugural episode the magnificent and brave Ann Vandersteel. There appear to be some technical difficulties which are postponing her from being here right now, but we hope that maybe she'll join us during this session. But Masako and I have a lot to say about why we thought this series was important and why we chose to go ahead and do it and reach out to some really incredible women. Part of that being that we think that women have a unique perspective in not only the truth movement, but what they do in an unseen way. You know, there are so many women leaders right now doing incredible and brave things, but there are also women who are, out of the shot, off camera, and doing this really courageous work within their families and communities that we were also going to feature. So, Masako, let's have your perspective on that, and then we can maybe launch into our origin story of why we decided to do this.
Yes. Hello, everyone. This is Masako Ganaha from Japan, and I'm honored to be able to co-host Women in Truth. Nowadays, it doesn't matter where we live, whether I live in Japan and Dr. Jones, Charlene, she lives in US, but we are all facing the same situation, and all women's power is much needed nowadays. And so as myself, I am not a mother yet, but I want to be a mother. And as I do this kind of like journalism and chasing what's really happening in the world and encountering many people all over the world who is in a key position and leading people or spreading the courage. There are many incredible women, and I myself, for my lesson too, I want to learn from those women. And I met Dr. Charlene in Thailand this year, and I learned so much, a lot. And then it inspired me that I want to learn more from Dr. James and also other incredible women. And we wanted to expand our women of network, and we become the mama bear force. So that's the very short introduction of the idea of this program. So this is our first episode, and so I'm very excited.
Likewise. And I think, what part of our conversation when we met in Thailand, you and Michael so graciously invited me to join you and to meet some really incredible people. One of the most significant being our mutual friend Soy, who her actions, and I'd love to have her on, but she was, I think, one of the most inspiring reasons that inspired us specifically to talk about women. The conversation, for me, my background is in anthropology and depth or Jungian psychology. And one thing I focused on very much is the role of men. I have 3 sons, and when I worked with and for the Army. I've worked with veterans, and Land Nam Warrior is a nonprofit veteran service organization. And I focused so much of my life on the role of men, and this idea of how we coordinate the internal and the external. So men, well, they're not really taught either of those things anymore. But working with military and veterans, they're taught how to be warriors. So they're taught how to fight on the outside, but they're not taught how to do the internal struggle and conflict, how to navigate that. So my work had primarily been with men as a mother and also professionally. But throughout, my life has been informed by having to navigate all of these professional, academic, whatever, as a mother, because I've been a mother since I was very young, my entire adult life, which is, whatever, it's what I chose to do. And I'm glad I did. But I've had to kind of hold on to both of these things at the same time. And I think that's true of so many women, and you don't see it, we see each other polished on the screen or at work, and we don't see that we go home and just keep working, or just keep raising, and that with or without children, wherever you are in the stage of your life, that's something that's really hardwired into us as women. And so we started this conversation talking about men, really, and Michael's perspective as a warrior and what men need to do and how they need to step up. And then this is this is how I felt about it or saw it anyhow. But then in speaking with Soy, and then also looking at your work, Masako, which I really want you to tell people about what you're doing in Japan. I mean, you're so courageous, you're so brave, and in so many ways leading this awareness and this fight in your own country of, we're being taken over. We're under threat. This is beyond a political voting situation or policy debate. We literally won't have a country for our children and grandchildren if we don't do something. And Anne and I have a similar sort of observation of you, that you're just this sort of quiet powerhouse, like watch out, and that's so emblematic of how women are. So my experience of looking at your work and seeing how you operate, and then meeting Soy in Thailand and hearing her story, and then we're talking about the men, and I think it was Michael that said, y'all need to do something with women. And we thought, bing, bing, bing. Or somebody, maybe you just said somebody needs to do something about women. And we were like, yeah. Like, wait, that's us. We need to do it. So I think it's really foundationally important to what's happening right now, that women tell their stories, and that we're not, because I think it's probably been sort of has been a socially engineered tactic to get women not thinking about how unique their perspective is to their biology. It is unique to our biology that we see things the way that we do. And there's nothing wrong with that. You'll have to tell me about how it is in Japan, but for me in the United States, being a Generation X and growing up in the 70s and 80s, and it was really pumped into you that you needed to forget about being a woman. You needed to go to school. You need to achieve. You need to have a career. They weren't yet telling you not to have children, but the motto was get it out of the way. So have your career first, and then when you have your kids, get it out of the way. Literally, that was the phrase they used to use. As if it could just be done and then swept aside. But this whole focus on having women just ape men, just be all the things that women complained about men for decades and centuries. Now you're supposed to just be that way. You're supposed to step on the guy in front of you and, be aggressive and do all of this stuff and forget about your family and don't worry about that. And it's been really damaging for women. But the fact of the matter has been that women continue to work in ways, whether it's professionally or at home, that are more connective, family-oriented, community-focused. And so long-winded way to say, you end up doing both. You end up expending huge amounts of energy to have a career and to have this public face, and then you go home and you just keep working. It's not as if you can really focus. It's hard to focus on the needs of the community and the family, because you're taught if you don't have a career, you're nothing. And I have a really interesting anecdotal story my friend told me about that, but I'd like to hear your perspective. Was it like that for you in Japan growing up? And is it still that way, or was it like that for your parents or your mother?
Uh, Meaning like women needs to go to work rather than staying at home and being a housewife. You
Right,
mean,
right.
right? I think the situation is the same in Japan too. Um, well, particularly my family, we have a traditional value, so I was not taught like this. But for example, in a school, uh, Japanese school, it's very serious, and it's like a race in our life. From the very beginning of the school, elementary school, you have to get a good grade, and then you have to go to good high school, and then you need to go to good university, then you can get a job at a big company. So if you can go through the rail, then you're the winner. But if you cannot, then sort of like you lost in your
Yeah,
life. That's the social pressure, and it's very huge. So I think it still keep going. And so it's not about you are women and what we need to um, preserve or take care or realize the value in it, or rather we need to be a um, working slave. That
yeah,
we don't use the term of slave, but how our society is structured is to produce working slave, and
hmm,
then we forget about all the tradition, or you are men or you are women. We don't learn about those aspect, and maybe this uh, story could be interesting for the audience to learn about the situation in Japan. My family is very close. So my parents, my brother and sisters, we are all close. So when I always talk about my family, it's something like very mm, interesting, very fun, very happy, good memories. So I always talk what's happening in my family to my friends in university. And one time, one of my friends said, "Your family is very unique. Your family is not um, top, mm, typical. Like having a close relationship with parents or husband and wife being so close. It's it's not normal nowadays." That's what she told me. So, and I was very shocked. And so nowadays, sadly, having a disruption in a family is the normal figure of family. Or when you see TV drama, then you see mm, like father being small and mother is being big.
yeah,
and,
yeah,
and
definitely.
that's the portrait of family. So I think it's all to brainwash us. That's what I think, but the situation is the same in Japan too.
Yeah, and I think you kind of expressed that as well with your kind of origin story of what your kind of original goals were with your education, and then maybe coming to America, or you did come to America, and then going back to Japan, realizing, wait, so I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that. And I also just wanted to add that none of this is meant to say, or all of this is meant to put into focus the fact that women can do, obviously, professional, they can do both, and the funny sort of phrase I use that I mentioned to you and to Anne was that, A woman can, what's unique about women is, we can, give birth, breastfeed a baby, and then pick up a gun and kill you. And we can do both of those things, Men can do one of those things. And rightly so. I mean, you can see how that would be baked into the equation or hardwired in by creator, because if women couldn't do that, anytime they were left alone in a village or tribe or whatever, I mean, well, the men were fighting or hunting or what have you, women have to be able and willing to defend, their loved ones, their children, each other. So there's always a time when women are going to have to stand up and perform those actions that men are much better suited to do, and again, that decades long sort of program to make you believe that you are no different from a man biologically is insanity, right? And we've seen the apex of that with the gender insanity, but that was building for a long time. It was for a long time. They were trying to convince women and men that there's nothing you can do that he can do that you can't do. Well, okay, fine. But, and okay, literally it's true. Besides lifting 100-pound sacks of cement, most, there's women or men are stronger than women, but it begs the question, what are you best suited to do? And if you're only performing the functions of a man, then this generation ends now. There's no future. So just, it doesn't even matter. But I want to make sure that people understand that it's our intent to focus on the fact that, yes, we acknowledge women can do both of these things, but that the aspect of our character that is life-giving and life-protecting, with or without children, is as important as that outward, external, professional face that's traditionally in the West, at least, been a man's, the provenance of men. So, it doesn't. Yes, we can do both of those things, but because we've denigrated this role of motherhood and family and anything that doesn't make money and doesn't get you power, doesn't get you hard power. And that's a conversation I think is going to span throughout this series, is this difference between hard power and soft power, right? So an army moving across the battlefield is hard power. A mother telling her children stories at night and over time shaping their development and the things that they care about, and baking, again, that these terms, hardwire, baking it, literally baking it into their consciousness of what is important to them, that is soft power. And neither one of those things is greater or less than the other. They are both very important. So if we can kind of look again at how the critical nature of soft power, well, first of all, just acknowledge the obvious. If women don't perform this function, there's no future at all. At all. And it is only because we have been willing and able to do both roles when it was at the time for which it was, during which it was called for, that we're even here at all. That you and I are even sitting here is because our ancestors, our mothers, did really hard things, over every single generation. And you have some great stories about your family's history in recent past and how that's played out. And I do too. So, I think it's important that we give women a place where it's okay to talk about how important this part of their character is, because it's not often, there aren't many places to do that. You can do it inside your home and with your family, and that's wonderful. But to make it okay to say, this is a noble goal in itself. It's not something to get out of the way. It is not. And because, I've had the benefit of having children when I was very young, and then again, when I was 40 years old. By the time I was 40 and I had to work to support kids and done an educational journey and done all this stuff, by the time I had what I jokingly call my second litter, I was old enough to know that that was the only thing that mattered. It wasn't some big crisis. So, oh no, it was no. Now I know that there's no getting it over with. That your family is the most central thing in your life, and it is the only thing that's truly enduring, and it is what matters most. And I tell that to young women that I meet, talking about this subject, and I say, I've done it. Okay, I have the letters after my name, and I've done this, and and you know what's most important to me? My children. And you know what was hardest to do? My children. And you know where I have the most regrets and the most things I wish I would have done more? It's not, I wish I would have written more papers and I wish I would have, no, I wish I would have spent more time with my kids, period. And there's not even there's no, it's like wavelengths on a radio, right? They're two totally different radio stations. You can't compare them. One is here and one is here, and they don't compare. So I want to make it okay for people to or women and men. And then that's the other side of this. I'm going to do a talk with Michael as well in a series about men. What's men's role in standing up and enabling this? And what are men? Because men have, believe me, as mother of sons, it's been a systematic destruction of the male psyche, or an attempt to make them ashamed, humiliated, apologetic for existing. And it's a disgusting thing, especially as a mother of sons, And for a very long time, I came from this sort of, academic, well, from academia, and seeing the abuses of what could happen on the right side of the aisle. I was coming from this viewpoint of feminism and just sort of left politics, not because it was my religion, because I had seen the abuses of the other side, right? But when it came to the feminist thing, okay, great. But I say, leave my sons alone. What are you doing? Stop. They didn't do this. They didn't invent slavery. They didn't invent war. They didn't, stop trying to bully them into hating themselves. That's stupid. And I want to turn it over to you, but I want to just end this little rant with a story from my very dear friend of mine. She's such a talented woman. She actually creates these, I call them statuary dolls of different mythological characters and whatnot. They're absolutely beautiful. Erin O'Riordan, and she's at Mother Felt It. And you can find her on Facebook and Instagram. And I'd love to have her on the show. But she has a great story about the reality of what we're talking about right now. She had a very successful career as a model, worked internationally. So she had experienced all of that, professional sort of world and exchange. And after she became a mother, she has 3 children, and one of the kids had to go to the ER. And obviously she knows her life has changed from what it was before. But this story really summed it up, and how our society denigrates motherhood and makes you invisible and unimportant. Anyhow, she took the kids to the ER, one of the kids, and they asked her, they're filling out the intake form. They asked her what her occupation, where do you work? What's your occupation? And she said, well, I'm a homemaker. And they wrote down unemployed. Mm-hmm. She said, that's when I knew I was invisible, So yeah, I'd like to turn it over to you and get some of your thoughts, and maybe some of your origin story of, how you first felt led professionally, maybe to come here to the States, and then what made you turn and look back to your home country. I think that's a really interesting story.
Oh, thank you. As I was listening to Dr. Charlene, like this program, Women in Truth, is going to be very fundamentally important program, because what we need as human is a nutrition for our spirit, and you are specialist in mythology, and as a woman, I have not learned about the mythology for women. And as a Japanese, we hear some basic stories of Japanese myth and regarding the role of men and women, and it's very fundamental and important. But we don't learn much about it compared to the significance of the importance. And I love old books. Behind me, those books are very old Japanese books. And things that I like to, the topics of the books that I like to buy is like the story that like a mother's mind or father's mind, or all the little stories of very important and ordinary people, but heart moving stories. And those stories contains the myth of the motherhood or myth of fatherhood. And as I read it, like I feel like I'm um, getting reading this for my nutrition. So what I was going to say is that this program is going to be the visual and audio version of those books and modern version. And have you heard of a book? It's called Self Help by Samuel Smiles, British, I think. And that book was very famous back in 1800 in Britain. And when Japan opened up the country, and we are trying to integrate the culture and the industrial technology from the West. And one government person was sent to Britain to learn about what's their strength, what makes British so successful. And then he went to Britain and then looking for what makes those people so strong, what makes them achieve so many things. And he spent quite a long time, but he couldn't finally find anything that he thought of the secret of their strength. And then on the way back to Japan, he was on a ship, and he was very sad that he couldn't accomplish his mission. And he was talking why he went to Britain and why he is going back to Japan. And one man who talked with him said, "Here is the book that you are looking for. This is the answer to your mission." And this was the book, Self Help by Samuel Smiles. And this book contains how people can be industrious. And the book starts with the heaven helps those who help themselves. So it talks about importance of being industrious. And in this book, it talks about a lot of the example of people who became successful. In the book, it a lot talks about those myths, and so what should I say? But the story is very old, so somebody needs to do the modern version to make people energized, not with intoxicant, with a real healthy way of empowering our mind. And that's what's most needed, I think. And we keep mentioning about the name Michael. He's Michael Yan, and he is a very famous war correspondent. And I am, what should I say? I'm honored to be married to him. And looking at him, I'm wondering why he is so strong. People who are in real trouble, not politically, not only politically, but in their life, personal life, when people are in trouble, people call him and start to talk about uh, how bad their situation is and asking for help. And I see people see in him the myth of manhood. That's what I observe. That's why people wants to hear from him. I think many of our audience follows Michael. He says as it is, and he does not intimidated, or he doesn't think about any like ego or money or anything. He just talk what's right and what's not good. And those absolute faith in truth that could withstand if this person has strong myth in them. And so what I want to say is that we all need an empowerment by those power. So I hope this program is going to be the program that would empower people. And I want to empower myself too by learning from a lot of the guests. And you asked me a little bit about why I am engaged in this kind of work. It's going to be a long story. So I just want to tell one story that always empowers me. I'm from Okinawa, southern part of Japan. And we during the World War II, unfortunately, Japan and US fought. I'm not talking about the war, which was bad or not. What I want to say is that, of course, my family fought in a war, and at that time, even the students, like 14-year-old, 13-year-old, young students, also fought for not only for themselves, but for their family, for their siblings, for their country. And in my family, there is one person who was, I think, about 14 years old. I think she was a student, and she went to help Japanese soldiers as a nurse, because those are the missions for those young students. And my other relative told her not to go because, of course, everybody understand if she goes, she will not come back. So my grandmother, she met her before she went to help the soldiers and said, please don't go. You are not going to come back. And then how she replied to my grandma was, there are so many things that I want to do, but contributing to the society is the things that I want to do the most. And then she went, and she didn't come back. Since I was little, my father told me this story over and over again. And he said, once you know the history and this family history, you cannot ignore it. Somebody needs to keep telling her spirit. We need to carry on her spirit. I was raised by listening to this story. So as being person, the Japanese, who happened to carry the baton of this modern day, there is no other choice but to engage in this mission. So this, I think, if you could analyze this myth, maybe there are much to I want to hear from you. But this story empowers me so much, and if we don't read the history, it feels like it's a long time ago and it's something like happened somewhere. But it feels so real to me, and it's not just history; it's a very personal thing. So I think her being a young student, but she had a soul of, I think, women in truth. So that is the story I would like to share with everybody. And yes, sorry, my English is not so. I can speak better in Japanese.
My Japanese isn't very good either, so We'll work on it. Not right now. So yeah, I just a few things. So speaking about Michael and why do people respect him so much, and why are they able to lean on him, and he's able to act in this from this position of strength. And I think it is what you said, is this because he tells the truth, because he doesn't prevaricate, he doesn't make things okay which are not okay. And I believe that all of us, and this does come not only from my own experience but also from my readings of Jung and Joseph Campbell, is that it doesn't really matter. You don't have to try to be acting in an archetypal or mythic way. You're going to, because these are the sort of patterns that have been set down. We will act within these channels. The question is the level of resonance that we can reach, right? How can we, if we are honest with ourselves and we are courageous, and as this woman that you explained, who she said she knew she wasn't going to come back. It didn't matter to her. She's going to do it. If you allow if you're not fixated on these consequences, but you see yourself as wedded to whatever your role needs to be, because our roles here are temporary anyway. This is a limited engagement, folks. It just is. And so doing your journey with fidelity, and with courage and with love, that's all you can do, because it's always a limited engagement. So the more that you stay within, so you're going to be on these archetypal mythic channels anyway, but the level to which you can resonate with truth and courage, you're going to sound loud, you're going to sound more, and when I say sound, I mean project, in a way that is more helpful and loving and impactful. And that's why, as Michael likes to point out, professional victims are professional predators. People who lie and cheat and steal and behave in ways that are unethical, they don't sound very much. It's tinny. It doesn't resonate with people. It might for a moment, but it's why they always have to come up with a new strategy of how to trick you out of your money, your time, your emotion, right? Michael can come on videos and say the same damn thing, have the same messages, core messages in every video, and people are going to keep watching it because the details are going to change, but the core message is the same, because it's truth with a capital T, because it resonates with them. He doesn't have to change his message. The liars and the cheats and the professional predators, they have to keep shifting so that you don't see what they're trying to do to you. But the truth is something different, and that's why it's so powerful. And that's why stories like you just told of this woman that you grew up hearing, you're still telling it, and you're going to tell it to your kids, and your family's going to keep telling, because it resonates truth, and it resonates power. Power is embedded in that level of truth. They don't. There is a man who wrote a book, David, I think his last name is Hawkins, David Hawkins. He did these, too long to go into here, we maybe can do a show on it, but these studies in consciousness he did all over the world, all these different countries, demographics, what have you, and identified some core characteristics about how people's minds work. But one of the things that he contrasts, one of the names of the name of one of his books is Power versus Force, the hidden determinants of human behavior. You and Michael, and hopefully myself, we're working with power, right? I'm not saying I'm so powerful, but I endeavor to work with actual power, which is grounded in truth. Force is something you have, as the name implies, you have to keep pushing. You have to keep doing all of these different things. You have to keep, machinations, I think is a good word. You're just digging around. You have to keep pushing. There's no roots in it. Force is on the surface. It's disturbing the water on the surface, right? There's all those metaphors from Eastern religion and Buddhism of, how you have a clear mind, right? You still the water. That's power. When your mind is still and you can sit in your truth. when the waters are agitated, you're just sort of tossed around and you can't really ground yourself. So that stories like you told of this woman and similar stories that I've heard, whether from mythology, or in my own families, those are going to continue to, while they might have, within them, there might be things that are sad or happy or tragic or joyful. See, all those things are those are the waves on that water I was just talking about. That's the weather. But the reason they'll keep being told is because, in totality, they're going to create that stillness and that real power. And I think that I would love for this forum here to be, a stage and a platform to share stories like that from our lives and from the women with whom we speak, from their lives, because that's the way that we're going to help build and empower women's confidence and belief in their own abilities as women, as unique to, as contrasted with men, as unique to that, is by hearing those stories that are grounded in that level of truth. And, one that I heard from my own family, there's a couple I'll share from my grandmother's. One was, and actually just dreamt of my uncle, who's in sort of the focus of this story that I'll tell last night. And he was the one I explained to you, Masako. I had an uncle who was Air Force, Korean War veteran, and he met and married a Japanese woman in the 50s. And that was not very common in the United States. And I didn't know that. My family we were, Southern family. There's all sorts of false stereotypes about that. And we've talked a little bit about how the South in Japan, Okinawa, kind of mirrors the South in the United States and these sort of stereotypes they have about us. But my family were very open and accepting of her. And, he wrote a letter to my grandparents and said, explaining that he had met this woman and he was going to marry her. And they said their response to him was, if you love her, we love her, period. So that was unique. And I grew up thinking everyone had a Japanese aunt. I didn't know, just that's the way it was. But the story, where this ties into my grandmother, is that she was raised in Florida and born in the teens. So she was a young woman when the Depression hit, and my great grandfather had quite a bit of land, and so they, she was engaged in a pretty much constant process of taking care of people in the community and feeding folks. And I am so blessed to have these stories that I heard from an eyewitness who lived through the Great Depression, who grew up not wasting anything, who grew up knowing how to take care of a community in serious crisis. And I think you probably have that too from your grandparents in the war. Humans are incredible. Women are extra incredible, I think. But humans are really incredible. Like, the things that we can endure and survive and turn around is really breathtaking. So that was, she was a young woman during the Depression, and her sister met and married a man who ended up abandoning her. And my Nana was very smart, very industrious woman. She had a scholarship to go to the University of Jacksonville to be a nurse. I mean, this was a really, if you're in the 30s, you're already decided you're going to have a professional career, and it's paid for. This is very unique. And her sister ended up dying in childbirth, and she, without question, took the child, my Uncle John, who met and married the Japanese woman, without question. She gave up her professional dream. She gave up the whole world that was open to her was, without question, now not open to her. And she did it without question. It wasn't, what should I do? And I wasn't there. So who knows, internally how the struggle at that moment. But all I ever saw was her love for John, for her son. Well, that made her a single parent in the 30s in Florida. That's not common, It certainly isn't, culturally seen as okay. And my granddaddy met and married her, and they raised John. He ended up, again, as I said, marrying my Aunt Alicia, who actually, her father wouldn't let her get married, so she had to wait until he passed away to get married. But I always think about that with my Nana. That's what I called her Nana. Her name was Mildred Coulter. Is that, I'm sitting here right now, and I was able to pursue all these academic and professional things because she was willing to sacrifice, and we don't know when we're going to be called upon to sacrifice. And so the strength and the power, this is power, right? Power isn't, oh, I'm going to forget this child and go pursue my dream. Power is, I will do whatever it takes to make sure that my family and my community is okay. And that's my fight. And that's my sacrifice, And that's always been really ennobling to me. And it's taken on new dimensions as I've gotten older and really understand the level of sacrifice that entailed. I mean, I know how much it costs a lot to raise a kid, not just financially, but emotionally. To take that on in the 30s, I can't even. And then for my granddaddy to be noble enough to say, because my Nana told him, when he was interested in her, we're a package deal. You get me, you get John, So that's a really beautiful story. And I, as I said, I hope that this space here can be a place where we can hear more of because I guarantee, and I have a bunch more from the other side and more about my Nana, but I guarantee you that women have these stories in their past, and they may have forgotten about them, or they may not have realized how important they were until now. But hearing the story, Jung said this. He said he said it, and he was right. The oldest form of healing is enchantment. So it's storytelling, enchantment, telling a story, and by this process, transporting people into this other world. It's why people are so fascinated by theater and film and television. You want to enter this other world. And so if we can help to, and again, this would be a more feminine way of imparting knowledge, right? Rather than a didactic, call and response. I tell you, you memorize it, you repeat it back, which is more of a masculine thing. Not bad, but different. If we can make this a way to educate people through enchantment, right? Pull them in through this story that's transformative to hear. When we hear these things, they transform us. I think that would be the greatest thing we could achieve.
Yes. Oh, I see. Sometimes I do, for my channel, I do a book club, and in the end, I do read out loud the old book stories, and people are very fascinated about those stories. And so, and the story, I'm because I create content, videos, and I write articles. So I'm always trying to learn what's the best way to convey a message so that people can easily understand what I want to say. And a lot of the books tells that story is very important. Instead of I say A plus A equal B, like here is Masako, one day she did something, and then this happened. That way, our brain feels that it's happening in our brain. So I love the way that we are going to do that by telling a story.
Absolutely. And it's really happening. We're part of something that's happening. There's this overused term, zeitgeist, right? The historical moment, that thing that's, right now changing. And, but I have seen it. And I think we're part of it. I know we're part of it. We are deluged with information. I mean, it's hard to put into words how overwhelmed we are with data. Unprecedented in the history of our species for people to have to take in this much information and make sense of it. And it really, I think it is creating levels of mental illness and confusion that we have never seen the likes of. And Michael talks about this a lot, information triage, right? You have to decide, I am not looking at that. I am not doing this. I am not, here is what I'm going to focus on. Because if you don't, you're not going to have any wavelength left for what's important. So the information triage of that's incumbent. That's the responsibility of every individual. But within that, it's not for lack of information, right? And I think that's what's sort of confusing or kind of stupefying to people who have been looking into sort of the background of this global power elite or what have you. Very little of this information is actually hidden. You and Michael do an incredible job of actually hunting down the information people actually can't get, right? You don't find it unless you went to that archive, or there is still a lot of that. But for the most part, what has been said, what are the behavior of our government, right? The actions of our governments, the actions of corporations. You can find this out, right? There's very little. We're talking about open source things. They're not classified, government classified doc. If you want to find out what's really happening, if you spent about 5 minutes on the internet, you can find out that the world you were presented, that the world as presented to you in school and as a child has very little to do with reality. That there's kind of a handful of corporations that own most of the resources, and what the stories you heard about our wars are not true. And whether it's nutrition, food, wars, whatever. The point being that the information is there if you want it. So I think what people are hungry for, rather than more information, and we need updates, like the things that you and Michael and Ann Vandersteel bring to the table, invaluable. That's the information we need. What we need as much as that are these stories. We need to know, okay, I have all the data. How do I do this? How do I live my life? How do I overcome challenges? How do I make this work? And I think for us, and with this platform with women, how do I make this work with a family? How do I even find time to start a family? People don't know how to do it. So it's this word praxis, practice, from the Greek pragma, doing a thing. They don't know how to do it. So hearing the stories is actually, to me, and I think that's why one of the reasons I was so motivated to do this with you, is that's one of the missing links right now. We need to know how people have done it. And as women, we need to know how women have done it, and how they can, again, not just with their public face. That part we know. That information is out there. We need to know what keeps you. So, and these are some of the questions we talked about asking Anne was, women who had influenced her in her own life. Some of these origin stories like you and I just told, what are some of her stories that she heard that have inspired her? What have been some of the greatest challenges that she has faced as a woman within her, family and community? What keeps her healthy? What keeps her sane? How does she show up looking that fabulous and telling us this terrible, awful I mean, she's sharing some really, important but very dire news and information, and looking great while she does it. Like, how do you do that? How do you how are you staying sane, and how are you staying healthy? Because unless you can do those two things, you're you're on a much shorter, you've got a much shorter expiration date than the one that we all do, right? And there was a saying in Latin, mens sana, maybe I've got it backwards. Uh, Mens sana corpore sano, healthy mind and a healthy body, right? Healthy minds create healthy bodies. And I think that's one reason Michael is, I know it is one reason why he's always, highlighting how damaging and what a weapon intoxicants are. If you're, what does he say? If you don't respect your mind, I don't respect your thoughts, you know?
Mhm.
So how are these women that we really respect and are really courageous, how are they staying healthy and sane? I mean, I think we all, and you and I talked a lot about this, right? What do we do? What do we do to, just be able to get up in the morning and function well? And as important to us as going and looking at these historical sites and talking to people was getting to a yoga class, right? Getting a massage. Like, no, we have to stay healthy. We have to stay okay. So I really look forward to hearing women, both who have a public platform and those, as I said, who, you know, they're operating, and they're privately in their families and communities, but they're holding the whole thing together. Without their input, we don't have that.
Mm. Yes. And the things that I am looking forward to this program is to create global network for the inspiring women, because in Okinawa, where I'm from, there is a saying. If I were to translate into English, it means that um, it's in. Let me say in Japanese first, so my English comes up. 戦ぬ幸ばい稲ぐから. So it means that for whoever who goes to fighting first, that would be women. So I think this expression also indicates that women has a strong sense of security, because women can give birth to child, and like you said, what's important for you the most is children. So nowadays, I think the women who triggered this instinct need to come together and form a network, so we can inspire each other and help each other. And plus, what for us it's women in truth. So we are saying women, 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 but like you mentioned, it's not about feminism or anything. I think I am not a feminist, but so I don't know what exactly they think, but I think it seems like feminist, they say they care about women and they claim women's rights, but I think they are using the idea of feminine or women to attack men. So I think if you really care about being women or being feminine, then you create the harmony with men, because it's not just men, it's not just women. It's like if there is a light, there is a darkness. Like it's yin and yang in Asian philosophy. There's always a pair. So I have a right hand, I have a left hand, I have right eyes, left eyes. It's all pair. So it's not just women or men, it's both, and it's about creating harmony. So by learning from those incredible women, we can create more harmony that's what I would like to achieve. Because nowadays, men need to stand up. Why they are so weak? Because they are not supported by women, or women are being under attack. So we don't have emotional space to think, oh, we need to take care of our men, you know. So they're creating us to turn on each other instead of supporting to each other. So we women need to realize our strength so we can empower the world.
Absolutely. And our unique strength, right? And I think that's the big failure of feminism. And we could do a really fun show doing a deep dive into the roots of feminism and the academy and politics and looking at all the foundations that were behind it. And in there, again, not hidden, in their own words, what they were trying to create. And it's not what you think, you know. But that movement where, you know, women do want a space. And yet, have there been systemic abuses of women? Yeah, you think a lot over time. But you know what? Here's the magic of being a woman. We endure, we survive. It doesn't matter. You know, anything that the cultures have thrown at us, the women have survived. And my proof of that is that you and I are sitting here right now. Nobody would be here right now if the women hadn't found a way to survive. But what feminism did is it shunted these conversations all into this lane of women against men, competing with men on their own terms. So what that does is it just completely negates your own power as a woman, as you said, in this more, in an Eastern concept, a yin, right? Yin power. It's passive in this way. It's soft power, but it's half of that circle. It's not a little part of it. It's a whole. It doesn't exist without, you know, the yang, the masculine power doesn't exist without the yin. So allowing women to making it okay to have that conversation that you have a very unique and special kind of power. You don't need to be in competition with men for that power. You don't need to put them down for you to feel strong. And as you were saying, I meant to say it, I got on a rant and forgot what I was going to say. But when you're talking about what you do with your book club, you know, and in each of our episodes, maybe, you know, sharing family stories, sharing historical instances of where women, you know, stood up and made these sort of, that they were the ones that somehow turned the tide of a war or even began conflicts because they saw it as that important, or ended conflicts. I mean, these stories are just they're not really told. They're not shared, even with all the feminist sort of lip service to that. It's not told. So if we can start sharing those personal stories, cultural stories, mythic stories, you know, and giving women a place to do that, I think that would be an incredible, as you said, a global network, you know, of women who, and how they're, because it's going to look a little different in each community. And what I love so much about the bit that I know about Japanese culture is that it's already embedded in your culture to honor your ancestors. You know, with us, it's, you know, maybe you do it, maybe you don't. But to hear the perspective of somebody who grew up in a culture where that is embedded within the culture, you honor your ancestors. You know, I think that's so important. So we can keep bringing that home each time we get together. I think that would be a win.
Oh, yes. I'm afraid maybe you need to go about time.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to keep it at an hour because in keeping with our theme, I have to get my son to school. So I'm doing both. And I know you probably have a busy day. What's next up on your schedule or your agenda? What you all are taking on next, Masako?
Actually, we are soon flying to Taiwan. There is a group have a ceremony in Taiwan for World War II in Taiwan, and we are learning a lot about history, and plus in this region of the globe, now it's very what should I say? CCP is becoming even more aggressive. So I think it's a very good timing to go to Taiwan and then see what is going on.
Well, I know you all will. You're with the best person probably on the planet that can help keep you safe for sure. And I hope that, coming up, we can have Anne on the show. I'm sure we can. Just technical difficulties happen. And I'm glad it worked out really well because, you and I got to tell a bit of our kind of origins and why we think this is important. I'd love to have our friend Soy from Thailand on, who did some really courageous and instrumental things in the violence that was going on in Thailand about a decade ago that Michael was there and documented. I'd love to, as I said, have my friend Erin on, who, has had both a career and family and is a creative. And what does that look like? Because I'll speak for her. She's holding a whole small community together with her generosity and her love. And do you have anybody you can think of besides the ones that we've talked about, or are there maybe some women in Japan that we could talk to?
Yes, I need to find somebody who speak in English, so I will think about it.
Yeah, sure. And if we need to do one that's Japanese and in translation, I am 100% okay with that because I think we're going to touch a lot more people if we are providing this sort of dual perspective of East and West, and as you say, if your English isn't good, my Japanese is terrible. So, and actually I'd signed up for a Japanese language class and all of these things happened and I wasn't able to go, but I've spoken with the gal who's from Tokyo about doing some tutoring. So I hope to be in Japan maybe in February and deliver some talks that I've done here at the University of Montana on the archetype of the warrior across time. So we can talk more about that, but I'd love to get over there and meet some folks and see it for myself. It's one country I haven't visited, and I always like to know a little bit of the language. So I look forward to that. And interestingly enough, I've been studying Attic Greek for a couple of years. It's really challenging and amazing, and learning about the history of the roots of Western culture. But there are a bunch of words in Greek and Japanese that are exactly the same. They sound the same and they mean the same thing. I couldn't believe, I thought, what if there was some weird link? And I look it up and the first thing, you should check that out, Masako. It's interesting. So yeah, I have a whole ideas in my mind of how I can incorporate learning these two languages. Maybe I can make it easier, but we'll see. But no, I have a lot of empathy for trying to communicate in a different language because it rewires your brain and it is quite a challenge. So as I get into Japanese, you can correct me.
Oh, I have never heard that we have the same words with Greek. I did not know that.
It's really strange. Yeah, I think one of them is new, as in new, or foundational, beginning. And then kai means and or as well also. It links words together. Kai. Anyway. Kai.
Oh.
What does that
Maybe
mean?
I need to see the kai. I don't know this word that you just mentioned by itself. I don't know which one exactly it means.
Well, anyway, that's a whole other topic. That might be interesting too. I haven't met her actually yet, but the woman here, the Japanese lady here in Kalispell who teaches the Japanese language at the college, I haven't met her yet, but again, navigating these two worlds. So, but yeah, some folks that are some women that in Japan, let's definitely, let's try to change it up, do one of each or however we want to do it. So I'm not sure when the next episode will be, but hopefully in the next couple of weeks we could probably work one in, and we'll see
Yes.
what Anne's schedule is like. Maybe she can make it for that.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Masako.
Yes. Thank you very much. And Women in Truth. Unfortunately, because of the technical issue, we couldn't have the guest, but we will try again. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Jones. Should I call you Dr. Jones or Dr. Charlene? Which do you prefer?
I'm just Sherilyn to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Charlene.
Thank you, Masako. It's been a real honor.
Thank you very much. Now let me stop.